Good morning, Vishal sir. Vishal sir, you have not joined in with audio. Please check your audio.
पर ये डाल दो एक बार मैं पी के देखना है काटो
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Hello. Good morning, Joshin sir.
And good morning, Dr. Vikas. Good morning.
Good morning, Vishal sir.
Good morning, Ji. Good morning.
Vishal sir, your voice is very low.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to all of you.
Morning.
Dr. Vikas, from here it is fine.
साउंड थोड़ी डिस्टर्बेंस आ रही है जो बोल रहे हो पिछो माइक दी जिस तरह दी हुई है कैन यू रिपीट नाउ हेलो
हाँ जी, डॉक्टर विकास.
हाँ जी सर, ਹੁਣ ठीक है सर आवाज जी। सर ਹੁਣ थोड़ी जी माइक डिस्टरबेंस आ रही है ਤੁਹਾਡੇ।
डॉक्टर विकास फोन ठीक है बिल्कुल।
ਹੁਣ ठीक है सर, ਹੁਣ ठीक है बिल्कुल।
ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच, थैंक यू।
राइट सर। Sir, I've made it live on YouTube now.
ओके सर, थैंक यू। Dr. Pushpandar, very good morning to all of you. Good afternoon, very good morning. Dr. Anju, very good morning. Dr. Dipali, very good morning. डॉक्टर विकास काइंडली चेक करोगे ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੈਪਟਾਪ ਤੇ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ WhatsApp ਤੇ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਔਨ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਪਲੀਜ਼। प्रोफेसर गिरीशनाथ झा जी, बहुत बहुत नमस्कार और वेलकम। थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग एंड स्पेयरिंग द टाइम। Dr. Yosen, our speaker, has joined.
हेलो 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 हेलो
हाँ जी गुरदीप जी,
सर सत श्री अकाल जी।
सत श्री अकाल गुरदीप जी।
हाँ जी सर।
थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग। प्लीज म्यूट पे कर लो अपने आप में।
मैं म्यूट कर लाई।
हाँ जी हाँ जी।
एक मिनट।
विकास जी, मैं रिक्वेस्ट जे तुसीं सारिਆਂ ਨੂੰ प्लीज म्यूट ਤੇ ਰੱਖੋ ਔਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੋਸਟ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਅਨਮਿਊਟ ਰਹਿਣ। So very good morning to all of you. We'll wait for 5 minutes. I'm connecting with Honorable Vice Chancellor to join. So, Dr. Vikas.
Yes, sir. Hello. Can you hear me, sir? Vishal, sir?
Dr. Vikas, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're very much audible, sir.
Yeah, I think we should start because I just calling Honorable Vice Chancellor, so he's busy somewhere. So he'll be
Right.
joining shortly with us. So in the meanwhile, let's start the webinar because our Honorable Speaker has already joined,
Right,
and
sir.
let's we start.
Okay, sir.
So in the meanwhile, when Honorable Vice Chancellor will join, so we'll request him to give the inaugural speech.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
So, okay, please proceed.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Like as per tradition of our university, we'll start with the university anthem. We'll start with the university dhuni. I request everybody to rise to the university dhuni as a mark of respect. So मेरी सब ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਵਜੋਂ ਸਭ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਥਾਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਖੜੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਣ। Thank you, everybody. Once again, good morning to everybody. Technology has the potential to revolutionize the traditional teaching and learning process. It can eliminate the barriers to educate imposed by the space and time and dramatically expand access to lifelong learning. Students no longer have to meet in the same place at the same time to learn together from an instructor. But this has challenges too, like in a society like India, where it is a multilinguistic society, it's a challenge for everybody to bring everybody on the same page. So today we have Dr. Jha, Dr. Garishna Jhaji to deliberate on this topic, that how can we come over these challenges. So before formally we start with the proceedings of the day, I'll request Director of Center for E-Learning and Teaching Excellence, Dr. Vishal Goyalji, to make formal welcome address. Over to you, Dr. Vishal Goyal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vikas. So first of all, I'm really, from the core of my heart, I'm thankful to Professor Garishna Jhaji. We have very long association way back. We have done one project in a consortium mode, and he's the mentor in my life too. I have learned so many things because he has a name in machine learning, natural language processing, and this is, you all will be really surprised to know that he's a man of Sanskrit, but he's a well experienced person of computers also. When you talk about any programming language, so especially in Java, so he is really, really, experienced person in Java programming and handling the servers, Linux programming. So hats off to our speaker today. So I welcome you, Professor Girishna Jhaji, and really thankful to you for sparing the time for as it is, off day for you as well. So thank you very much for sparing the time to enlighten us with your knowledge. And no, it is very novel topic on which we will be learning a lot from you. I welcome my Center for E-Learning and Teaching Excellence team, Dr. Josen and Dr. Vikas, who has managed all the webinar things. I welcome all present on the Zoom, who have joined through Zoom and who are watching this webinar and attending this webinar through the YouTube channel. I am from a core of my heart, I'm thankful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Arvind Ji, who has given us the permission and always motivating us for doing such events. So today he is busy somewhere, and also his health is not well, so he'll be joining us shortly. So so in these words, I welcome you all on this platform, on this e-learning platform. And without any delay, I would like to learn something from our Professor Girishna Jhaji, the speaker of the day. So over to you, Dr. Vikas.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And now it's the time for the important talk which we have been waiting eagerly. Now I'll request our coordinator for the center, Dr. Gurpreet Joshan, to kindly introduce the speaker of the day to the audience. Over to you, Dr. Gurpreet Joshan.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are very much audible, sir.
Okay, thank you. So our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor Dr. Arvind Ji, our speaker of the day, Dr. Girishnath Ji, Director of our Center for E-Learning and Teaching Excellence, Dr. Vishal Goyal Ji, Coordinator of the Center, Dr. Vikas Deep Ji, and our dear participants, a warm good morning to all of you. Today we have joined in this session for a special lecture under our Leader Speak lecture series. Our speaker of the day is Dr. Girishnath Jha. It is my privilege to introduce Dr. Girishnath Ji to the audience. Dr. Girishnath Jha is a professor of computational linguistics at School of Sanskrit and Indic Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He is also working as concurrent faculty at School of Engineering, concurrent faculty at Center of Linguistics, and concurrent faculty at Special Center for E-Learning. He has completed his PhD in 1996 from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. His research interests includes Indian languages corpora and standards, science and technology in Sanskrit text, computational lexicography, machine translation, and e-learning. He has more than 24 years of teaching and research experience. He received various awards for his work, which includes KECSS Felicitation Award and DAAD Fellowship from Germany. Dr. Girishnath provides consultation support to more than 10 government and non-government agencies of national and international level, which includes Google, Microsoft Research, University of Pennsylvania, USA, University of Massachusetts, USA, and CDEC Pune. He has delivered more than 260 invited lectures. Dr. Girish also invited in various conferences and workshops as keynote speaker. He has more than 140 research papers in journals and conferences of national and international repute. Recently, Dr. Girishnath Jha is appointed as Chairman, Commission for Scientific and Technical Terminology, Ministry of Education, Government of India. Today, Dr. Girishnath has joined us on this platform for a special lecture on the topic of emerging educational technologies for multilingual societies. So we welcome Dr. Girishnath Jha, and I am sure that our audience will have a fruitful session today. Thank you. Over to Dr. Vikas.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now I'll request Dr. Garishna Jhaji to take over the dais, please, and kindly enlighten us with your thoughts on a very pertinent topic. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Just a second, let me share the screen. Thank you, Vikasji. Thank you, Vishal and others for inviting me to this very important webinar. I'm getting this request for admitting people, so that's kind of an.
Yes, sir, we'll be doing it, sir. We'll be doing it.
Okay. Excuse me. So I hope everybody is able to see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So thank you, Punjabi University Patiala. I've been there several times. We've run a project over there with Vishal and Sumanpreet ji as the lead PIs for this project, and we've done a good job, actually, great job in creating. I would say Punjabi corpora, Hindi to Punjabi parallel corpora. So today's topic, I thought I'll talk about emerging educational technologies. Actually, before joining JNU in 2002, I was software development specialist in an e-learning company called Human Kinetics in USA, where we developed end-to-end solutions for elderly population, training elderly populations, in staying fit. And before that, I was actually in B2B, B2C company, So I'm going to talk about what kind of educational scenario do we have in India. We are very unique actually in many perspectives. And if there is AI in education in India, it has to actually cater to all those requirements, unique requirements and nuances, which you don't find anywhere else in the world. Even in Africa, you don't find as much diversity and nuances as you have in India, a single country. So I'm going to talk about all those. So let's start with what are the nuances of educating a multilingual society. So let's look at that. First of all, we have to teach a very diverse community, which could be linguistically, culturally diverse. And then multiple learning purposes. Not everybody joins a course with the same goal, right? So they have different purposes. And in India, we are basically looking at people who want to educate themselves for a particular task. They don't necessarily have to be given a degree or a certificate, right? And multiple learning capacities of people, right? If there's a bigger class, we're looking at e-learning, there could be hundreds and thousands of people in the same class, so they could be of multiple learning capacities. So is there a learning management system looking at those, idiosyncrasies and nuances of every individual? Because same lesson will not be good for everybody else, because they'll be spending more time before a lesson in grasping the lesson, right? So we may have to simplify lesson one-to-one. Illiteracy is a big problem in many multilingual societies. In India, of course, right? Many states have done much better in terms of literacy, and many states haven't. So in ancient India, literacy was not a question at all. We were educating on oral tradition, right? So oral tradition was the dominant medium, and we did pretty well actually in oral tradition, right? And so can that again be assimilated using technology, the oral tradition, communication? Young and old learners, there could be adult education also. Children and people of every age could be possibly in a single class. And of course, oral tradition. Many languages don't write, and still don't write, and they only speak, right? They only perform, speak, and create oral literature, right? Oral communication, but they don't necessarily produce content, written content. And multilingual and multicultural societies in India, one language actually may represent many cultures, right? So Hindi, for example, if you see, it's spoken in 10 states and many cultures, different kinds of people speaking the same language. And imagine India, a bigger India in ancient times, where from Arunachal Pradesh to Iran, or single from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, single cultural door, and even Southeast Asia, a bigger cultural zone. How did we manage our education in oral tradition that time? I'm told people who were coming to India to get education, they would stay for a few days in Indonesia and learn Sanskrit first, and then come to get education in Indian universities in India. So we have to have some kind of a standard language for higher education. That's a part of it. We'll talk about that. But for primary education, as NAP also says, we have to have matribhashaye, mother tongues. Language barriers, and so since we are very fluid, we are very casual in languages. We switch languages. So we have different scripts, and also script mixing. We have undocumented languages. All these challenges. Now, so talking about multilingual, multicultural societies, we think of India first, the most diverse, most multilingual, most multicultural society. If you look at the last census, 2011, so there are 19,500 languages where less than 10,000 people speak a language. We count them as a language, 19,500, and 270 mother tongues. I'll talk about that. So it's very complex, right? So let's look at education in India, where we were and where we are today, actually. So from a typical Guru Shishya Parampara, right, and essentially oral tradition, one-to-one, we came to Macaulay's strictly alphabetic system, 1835. So we are going to complete 200 years of Macaulay's education in 2035, right? So 13 years from now, we'll be completing 200 years of Macaulay. From India's own experimental local issues-based content, education to solve your day-to-day tasks, to help you, right?
Professor Jha, sorry, I'm interrupting you. Can you make it slideshow, please?
Slideshow is not, you can't see the slides?
No, sir. It's on the essentially a multidisciplinary area of study is coming.
It's not changing?
No, it's not changing.
Okay.
Make it full screen, please, and then.
No, I think it has been shared different. Like it's a yeah. Now it is.
Let me make a PDF very quickly so that will perhaps solve the problem.
So I got a message from Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir. He'll be joining for the presidential remarks. So Dr. Vikas, please note it down. He'll be joining by 11:50.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm currently converting my PPT into a PDF. Hopefully it goes through smoothly, and then I'll be able to show. There is a problem in Zoom because sometimes the slides get fixed and they don't move. And by the time people report to me, I've already crossed several slides. So let's see if it completes. So in ancient India, actually, we were hope everybody's able to see now this PDF.
Yes.
It's changing. Okay, good. So we have solved. So which slide was it when I was there last?
This was the first slide only, sir. After title.
Oh, slide, okay. So education in multilingual society is very complex, and we have to teach diverse community and multiple learning purposes, objectives, and capacities, of course. And illiteracy is a big issue. And of course, there could be in a bigger class, if you're talking about technology, could be a bigger class of hundreds and thousands of learners. There could be multiple ages, multiple capacities, etc. Oral tradition was, of course, something to look into more closely. Now, multicultural, multilingual, language barriers, mixing, script varieties, script mixing, and languages which are not written. All those issues will be there. And if you talk about education in India, then of course from the traditional Guru Shishya tradition, which was essentially oral tradition, we have now Macaulay's tradition, Macaulay's Education Act, which came in 1835, which is now going to complete 200 years in 2035. So 13 years from now, we'll be completing 200 years of Macaulay. Now, from India's own experimental local issues-based content. See, education was in India to solve local issues. So a student who joined an ashrama was taught everything, even the martial arts, right? Everything which helps him survive. But today you are actually, you have been dichotomized in an area, specific area. So you select an area, you stay in that area. Even if you discover that you don't like it anymore, you have to stay in that area. The NEP has, kind of tried to solve a lot of these problems.
That's all. So you have shared your PPT slide, not PDF.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Let me open my. Is this PDF visible now?
Yes, now it's fine. Sir.
Okay, and it's changing too, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, from Vedanga based on Vikshiki model, where everybody can study every subject, right? So a mathematician was a poet, Ayurveda scientist was a poet too, right? But from that model, now we have very clear watertight subjects. You have to be a scientist or humanist. You can't be both, right? You can't be a social scientist as well as a scientist. So humanistic universalism based ethics and values to self-centered individualism. So Western model teaches us individualism, greed, aggression, domination, and colonialism. All those things which were actually alien to India have been imported badly to India, and from sustainability to rampant devastation of resources. So when you become too individualistic, you want to just have everything for yourself and not for society. So you basically start exploiting more and more the resources. But the ground realities today, we have to also be very careful about talking about that. So NEP talks about mother tongue education in at least the primary level, right? And we have 270 mother tongues. And we have almost 6.5 lakhs villages, and universities 790 and 37,000 plus colleges, 11,000 plus standalone institutions, and 1.5 million schools in India, 8.5 million teachers, and 250 million students in schools. And of course, most of them will have poor infrastructure. Language-wise, 19,500 languages with less than 10,000 speakers. 270 mother tongues with more than or equal to 10,000 speakers, 121 languages, and out of those 22 scheduled languages in 4 families. Now there are 37 more applications pending for inclusion in the Indian Constitution. So if all of them are included, there'll be 59 scheduled languages in India, if all of them are included, which typically happens in an election year. Now Hindi with more than 50% direct speakers, and if you count the indirect speakers, like states of Punjab, Gujarat, Maharashtra, these are not Hindi-speaking states. But if you count the population in these states also, you go up to 81% people who can speak Hindi, right? And English is the second biggest language in India with 10% people, right? So these are the realities, and we have to see what we can do. But the fact is that 90% of people don't speak English in India, and the medium of higher education mostly is in English, and particularly technical education. Yesterday we had a seminar in AICTE, and technical education is a big thing now, actually, and that has to be in Indian languages medium. English has been a very important language, and there is no problem learning English and and knowing the language, because it helps you. But using English as a medium of instruction and medium of governance is deadly. Where people don't understand the language, 90%, and you still want to bombard them with English content and English instructions for governance and health, etc., etc. That is not good. And it's good that the education policy has laid a lot of emphasis on actually Indian languages medium. So can we replace Macaulay's legacy? That's a big question in 2025. So 30 years from now, can we remove Macaulay and replace it with some alternative? So if you want to replace English today, Hindi could be a very strong an option, because Hindi is spoken by a large population. But again, that does not mean the people who have 270 mother tongues in India, they should be educated at least at the primary level in mother tongues. Now, it's not an easy task, because we don't have content in these mother tongues. We don't have vocabulary in these mother tongues. We don't have vocabulary. How can you write content? If you don't have content, how can you educate, right? So at CSTT, we have this huge mandate, to educate, to educate the masses using Indian language terminologies and Indian language text. But the good thing is that the use of Indian language has been rising steadily and at a very frantic pace. Despite the fact that we are low in content, we are using Indian languages more on mobile and internet, etc., etc. So look at the content-wise, all Indian languages combined, we don't have even more than 1% on internet content. English alone has 53%. But every 9 user out of 10 is demanding or using Indian language. That is a big thing. Every 10 users who get connected to internet, 9 are actually demanding or using Indian languages. So the challenge is the mass education for non-English population in India. And we cannot do it humanly. If you want to employ human teachers, we can't have 270 teachers for a subject in every school. So Indian languages are low in technical vocabulary and content, and so it becomes much more difficult to create. So therefore, the role of CSTT, the organization which I'm heading currently, is massive. Basically, we have to create scientific and technical terminology in all Indian languages, right? And we currently have been focusing on only 22 languages, but I think we should be now focusing more on other languages, also major languages also, which are not a part of the schedule. And then also creating these vocabulary and content in subject-specific domains for education, like science and technology areas, humanities areas, social sciences, and multidisciplinary areas. Now in the Macaulay system, we have divided areas, and people get degrees in these areas. But it would be good to focus more on multidisciplinary areas or interdisciplinary areas. Let people not worry about a particular domain. They can basically get part of all the domains, depending on what they need. And the bottom line is the human effort alone cannot solve this. We will have to use suitable technologies in education, right? And what kind of technologies? So basically, we have to use 2 sets of technologies. One is language technology and AI, and other is educational technology. So cost-effective, user-friendly education technologies and suitable AI technology because of India's multilingual, multicultural situation. And all of that have to be adapted to domain-specific situations. Same technology may not work for engineering, because engineering will have a lot of lab simulations, and the same may not work for humanities where you don't have lab requirements. So we have to basically make sure the technologies are quite nuanced and idiosyncratic and for domain-specific requirement. Let's be specific what kind of language technology and AI we need. Input-output tools for all Indian languages, that's very critical. Real-time machine translation, I was talking about it yesterday at AICTE, that without real-time machine translation, we cannot hope to deliver education in every language. Text, dialogue, speech, and multimodal technologies. These are also very critical, because we have oral tradition in India, and people don't want to write if they don't perhaps know to write, some population. So it's good to offer education orally in the oral tradition, and let multimodal technologies handle all that requirement. And in terms of educational technology, of course, we need server-based technology for easy content creation in a collaborative way, like using a lot of content creation software, learning management software. And then deployment and delivery in a suitable environment, which basically dovetails from technology creation to delivery. All of that should be on a platform which talks to each other in a pipeline which is seamless, basically. Dynamic interactive content with sufficient multimedia and simulations. If education is offered only in text, that doesn't go down very well with students. You have to have multimodal, speech and video and simulations, etc. All of that has to be there. There has to be smart learning management systems, not the typical LMS, which basically keeps track of how many students have joined the course, how many have registered, how much payment has been made, etc., etc. But also how much time a student is spending on a particular lesson. Is there a need for simplifying the lesson? So taking help of the AI agent. AI agent to simplify the lesson, right? Okay.
Dr. Girish, please unmute yourself. I muted everybody.
Okay, I did say it. Yeah. So the learning management system has to be smart, and it has to call the required AI service to deliver a seamless content, which is which is cognitively plausible and easy for everybody else. and the useful content which helps livelihood and solves problems. Content has to be such that which actually helps people. Now, educational technology, when we talk about it, we talk about e-learning. E-learning, you can distinguish e-learning from the rest of the online technologies or video conferencing mode education, etc. In a way that e-learning calls for the least interaction by human. So it's almost all technology, right? So basically, when e-learning is there, everything is simulated, right? So you have almost the minimum requirement for human interaction here. So this is what I'm looking at. So it is a branch of the advanced learning technology and which has substantial use of AI. So basically what we do in e-learning, we try to access educational curricula outside conventional mode of classroom learning. So classroom learning is out and now it comes the technology mode of learning, and this could be partial where there is some human interaction and completes fully automatic. There's no role for humans. And so university basically become a piece of software. This is a criticism that some people come against e-learning. So there's a lot of multimedia technologies driven by client-server based technologies to enhance what is called anytime, anywhere learning and digital approximation and replication of human learning. So idea is to look at the human learning environment, how human constructs society and constructs learning from it, and then try to simulate the same using e-learning, basically, as if you're giving a social, a simulation of a person, basically, that he's a society, he's learning from society. It draws heavily, of course, from cognitive science, psychology, etc., and therefore substantial use of AI. There are a lot of research going on, actually, in animations and simulations where if a character is moving, I'm teaching something with the use of characters. If a character is moving, so the lip movement in terms of speech and the movement of the dress, etc., all of that should be, similar as if it's real. And all of that makes an impact in learning. So humanities, social science, science and technology, visual art, all of that, could be combined, in e-learning. So otherwise, learning would be quite stale and uninteresting. So what constitutes good e-learning? It has to be very, very interactive, a lot of multimedia and illustrations and simulations. It has to be need-based. The content should be created on the fly. What exactly I need? For example, the learning management system has gauged that the learner's qualifications are from a primary level, not intermediate, not advanced. So he gives the same lesson for a primary learner. For example, Sanskrit Sandhi, learning Sandhi in a morphophonic combination in Sandhi in Sanskrit. So that could be the same lesson could be offered to a primary learner, to intermediate learner, and to the advanced learner by basically creating on the fly, adding difficulty level. So for a simple learner, could be very simple, game-like situation where people combine two sounds and get a new sound. For intermediate, there could be a little bit more of a research aspect. Advanced learner would be totally Paninian, something like that. So it has to be need-based. You must accept the user feedback and evaluations, and should handle administrative tasks very well, using content creation, content management system, and learning management system. All of that has to be there. So we have to basically understand what is a static content, what is dynamic content. Dynamic content is created on the fly, and that has more control over what kind of delivery you are making to the target audience. And the components would be, of course, a very good graphical user interface and user-friendly front end. And there should be a menu or basically an NLI, natural language interface. So many should be removed by NLI, where you basically speak and the lesson opens to you. And then all these three modalities, unimodal, bimodal, multimodal, and user information has to be stored in databases, appropriate databases. It has to be well-structured databases, and not using plain queries, but stored procedures and triggers. So all those, enhancements have to be done. And there are, rich interactive content has to be created by authoring tools, content creation systems, content management systems, using image editors, audio, video editors. All of that, has to be put in place. And then there are a lot of e-learning. If you are actually looking at developing e-learning content from scratch, not many people do it. They would rather cling to some pre-existing platforms and create content. But there are people who might want to create content, everything from scratch. So for them, there has to be knowledge of tools. You select, basically a package or some kind of a set of APIs. So several languages like JSP, ASP, Cold Fusion, and databases, etc., etc. And then, multimedia software source like Macromedia, and other integrated platforms, etc., etc. There's a lot of content development systems, content management systems, learning management systems, and you have to basically worry about whether they are open source or free or they are paid. Basically, I'm not going to talk about those things. It will take extra time. And then delivery is very important. Whether you want to create a standalone system, when I created Sanskrit multimedia e-learning application that was Flash to be delivered online, but when Flash got deprecated, I had to convert that as a standalone system so that I can send that to people and they can use it. So there has to be easy convertibility, in case of requirements like this. You deliver it on a LAN or WAN or mobile, on the web, or multi-delivery platform, all of that. So basically, e-content on e-education. So basically, people create content in languages and deliver those content using some kind of LMS, or which could be open source or could be paid, which is hosted on platforms like Swayam, etc., etc. So you have to basically see if the content created is good enough, which can be simulated, and part of it could be offered dynamically also. For example, the content, instead of storing the actual content in database, we store the nuts and bolts of the content in database and map those with the user qualification. So the learner qualification will decide what kind of things we pick up from database for creating a content. We don't deliver the same content to everybody, but we create the content on the fly depending on user qualification. So true e-learning would be basically, interactive, multimedia animation linked to LMS. It will do user evaluation, and then it will track user performances. Like, learning tracking, how much has the person learned, how much time he is spending on a lesson, and the research on readability. If he's spending more time on a lesson, for example, there are 100 students in a class, and the average time they spend on a lesson is about, say, 5 minutes. But we have a student who's spending 10 minutes, 15 minutes on a lesson. Then we have to make sure that the student is having difficulty and he has to have a simpler content. So the machine should make the content more readable automatically by calling the appropriate AI service. And then we have to worry about whether it's a complete degree program or certificates or simple skill development. Now, areas of AI application, could be in intelligent simulation of actual learning, multilinguality and multimodality have to be handled. And it can enhance the performance of targeted expert systems, which are, for a particular subject. And it can make animations more natural, to make sure that, person is completely immersed in the learning environment. And it can customize lessons specific to the learner, as I mentioned already, using the learning management system. It can also summarize the lesson. There are many people who wouldn't spend, suppose the average time that a person spends on the lesson is 5 minutes. You have a user who spends only 1 minute. It means he's browsing through the lesson. So maybe he needs a summary of the lesson. So you can basically summarize a lesson, And the lesson simplification, of course, automatic translation would be good because the person may have difficulty, reading the lesson in a language. So you may have to provide him alternative, language content. And then lesson readers could be done through speech synthesis. And then very important thing, appropriateness of a lesson. The same lesson may not be good in all the cultural zones of the country, right? Some symbols, may be good for a certain part of the country, but certain symbolism may not be good for the other part of the country. So it has to be very carefully, the AI can adapt the lesson appropriate to a culture. And then, understanding speech and its applications is very important because otherwise you can't do dialogue. And of course, handwriting recognition. if I'm, basically providing handwriting notes, machines should be able to convert the handwriting into text. If the user is giving exam, if the learner is giving exam in handwriting, that should come to us in computerized text, electronic text. That's also possible. Then should be a facility for teacher training, and then we have to differentiate different kinds of learning and focus on one-to-one, ideally. So intelligent tutoring systems could be also thought of, which can basically thread themselves into individual teachers. And we can also automate administration as a very important aspect of any e-education program. Administration is there. And we can also think of universal classrooms where anybody in the world could be in the classroom. And that will add much more complexity, of course. And so I talked about intelligent tutoring support. So some examples where AI can actually come in and would be machine translation, speech technologies, handwriting recognition will be, of course, very important, as I mentioned earlier. And then predictive keyboards, because creating content easily, you have to have smart keyboards. Lesson summaries, text evaluation for exam, etc. QA and dialogue systems. These are some of the key areas where AI can pitch in, but these are not all areas. There'll be many more areas which have to be thought of more innovatively when we are handling a bigger country, a more diverse country like India. So, but then the problem is that AI itself is evolving, and then there are challenges in using AI also. AI in India has to be Indian AI, which will be cheap, multilingual, flexible, and elastic enough to cater to something absolutely new situation. Because when we are handling many languages, many cultures, there could be some novel situations emerging. So AI has been evolving faster, and this constantly evolving AI techniques is creating problem. I always give an example, AI in the 90s when I was doing a course in University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, Introduction to AI. And that course basically was a programming in Prolog and Lisp. So course was titled Introduction to AI, but it was a course in programming in Lisp and Prolog. Now, if you do a course to do AI, you will be eventually doing a lot of machine learning and deep machine learning. So AI has changed in terms of methodology, in terms of the approach and how they handle data. And to help today's AI is a lot of data available actually on internet, and that is basically feeding into today's AI methods. And so we don't know what kind of situation emerges tomorrow, and therefore we have to be very careful in selecting the AI tools and algorithms for a diverse country like India, because if we have gone far advanced into it, we have created something nice, and tomorrow AI itself changes, we'll be in a deep problem. So finally, summarizing, we are looking for an ideal e-learning solution for India, a diverse India. And what would be that ideal e-learning solution? So we can. It should focus on knowledge and not on degrees. E-learning here in India should be focusing on knowledge that a person wants to acquire to solve his problems, day-to-day problem. We should focus on that, and it should provide dynamic content suitable to the needs of the learner. So depending on what the learner wants, the machine should be able to provide that content, and which should be appropriate culturally and should be useful to the person, to a very important aspect. And it should be basically bimodal, speech to speech, and multilingual delivery. Multilingual delivery on multiple platforms. And multimodal, because it should handle speech and gestures, all of that, and it should understand user queries. User is speaking something, that dialogue should be captured, and response should be given by the learning management system, calling the appropriate AI service. Multilingual content created on the fly. We can't store multilingual content in all 270 mother tongues. Let's talk about primary education in India, which is a mandate, very strong mandate, very timely mandate by the NEP that we should have primary education in mother tongues. So how can we create content in all 270 languages? So we have to basically create content on the fly, and you have to train AI system appropriately in the vocabulary, and the corpora of that language. and then it has to be delivered on mobile tabs, which are the easiest available, platforms to the people today in India, right? So these are some of the essential requirements, and the most important requirement is the education has to be free in India, because if you start charging, then everybody will not be connected. Now we have to think of the last man in the remotest corner of India, right? Again, that is the goal. We cannot exclude him or her. Everybody has to be in, and therefore it has to be free. If not free, then almost free, actually, so that has to be the goal. So with this, I'll end my talk. I hope I have been in time. I was supposed to end at 11:45, leaving 15 minutes for the Q&A. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I hope I have made sense. If there are queries, I can take it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, our Vice Chancellor, sir, has also joined. Good morning, Vice Chancellor, sir. Thank you so much for sparing. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time, sir. Sir, Dr. Girish Jha, sir, has made a very elaborative presentation on this issue, like emerging technologies, especially in a multicultural, multilinguistic society. Sir, like it's great, indeed, it's a great challenge for us, like in a society like ours, where 19,000 languages are there, almost 270 mother tongues and all that. I think it's a great challenge for our AI system for developing e-learning, sir. Thank you so much for the important inputs. Now, I would like to request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, to make presidential remarks on today's talk, sir, before we take Q&A. Over to you, Vice Chancellor, sir.
Hello. So, good afternoon, good morning. I mean, it's still morning. See, I'm not too well, but I thought I will appear for a short while and participate in today's seminar. So I will kind of switch off my video. See, what happens is that every technology has a trajectory, and every technology also has a character. So some technologies are primarily elite, and they can't really be people's technologies. On the other hand, some technologies may start elite and become technologies which are enabling technologies. So in the field of information processing and computing and so on, it started off elite, but now it has reached a state where it can be a very, very enabling tool for every person in the country. And that opportunity is with us in these years. And I could see that Professor Jha was talking about that. I mean, the fact that an AI bot can translate into all Indian languages simultaneously as you are speaking, or a video which is recorded in one language can be properly converted into another language without really any human intervention, is a great opportunity for our country, because we have been trying to move towards English or Hindi or this or that. And after all, quite frankly, if my language is not a certain language, it doesn't matter whether it is Hindi, which is spoken 500 kilometers away, or it is French, or it is Russian. Once you deprive me from my language, my identity is lost. So this whole idea that we must interact with people in their own language and also deliver high quality content is extremely important, and AI tools and e-learning can be a way to take it forward. That is one point I wanted to make. Second point I wanted to make was that all the technologies that we adapt, we must think of developing our own also, because technology development has a context. In the West, many times technologies are developed because it's a manpower deprived society. We are not a manpower deprived society, but that does not mean that we don't need technologies. So many of these technology adoptions, we are not really always looking for replacement for people, because we do have the people, but we are looking for augmentation. We are looking for how to take things forward using technologies. So therefore, many technologies directly cannot really be used. They need to be adapted, or maybe new technologies need to be invented. The third point, which is not directly related with e-learning, is that as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, which was also the major topic of today's discussion, if we only use the neural network black boxes and things which are available, that is at one level. We must develop our own AI tools, because what is inside that box, of course, we say it's a black box and it learns, but it's important. What are the configurations? What are the connections? What are the algorithms inside which are learning? So if we don't intervene at that level and we use the AI bots and the black boxes developed by other people, then we always will be one step behind. So we should be sensitive to that also. It's a great opportunity, and I think the presentation, though I could not attend the entire presentation, but I was present in the last part, and I could see the very good talk which was being delivered by Professor Jha from the side of the Punjabi University. I thank him very much for sparing time and participating in this program. We are very keen to take forward the project of e-learning into the rural areas of Punjab, because we are one of those universities which is in the rural Punjab, in the backward Punjab, and we have all kinds of students connecting with us, and we must provide them education despite their economic and social situation. So that's where e-learning comes in a big way. We need to integrate it with our programs, which I think needs to yet to happen, but I suppose that will be the next step. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for joining. In fact, like if even you were not keeping well, still you joined, sir. Thank you so much. And like for making very important points like technology in a society which is not manpower deprived, like it should be used for augmentation and developing AI, what is inside the black box. So motivating us to work on that. Thank you so much. Thank you once again. Now over to Director Vishal Goyal, sir, for the QA session before we pose vote of thanks, sir. Vishal, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chancellor,
Sir,
sir.
do we go for QA section, sir? QA session.
So is there any queries from the participants? We can just ask for 2-3 minutes. You may give the access. Yeah, there is one query from Dr. Divya Prakash Pathakji. So Dr. Vikas, can you please read out to the speaker?
Yeah, sure, sir. The query is, do we have room for private sector in this field? What are your policies regarding this? How we should build an ecosystem so that it becomes profitable for private sector to invest in this field?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, you know, there's a lot of room for private sector, and there is an initiative by the principal scientific advisor of Prime Minister Modi, where they are opening up this part of automatic machine translation to startup companies. I happen to be in the committee, and there's so much of interest actually from the private sector. You know, my student himself, he opened a company, set up a startup company. So there's a lot of scope. Now, what are the policies? I think these are the, we have to look for the small scale industries and the mid and other kinds of companies. How can they be opened and how can they be, you know, attracted for participation? The government has a lot of initiatives to you know, encourage such companies to participate in such moves. And this you know, machine translation is one of them. And there are other areas like legal domain is very prominently figuring. And I remember participating in a panel discussion with the legal startup companies, and all of them are actually looking at the legal data, which is now opening up gradually, and how to leverage that data into, you know, creating seamless machine translation systems. But once again, I would like to point out that all of them, almost all of them that we recently interviewed some companies, are actually using the pre-existing algorithms and the black boxes that Honorable Vice Chancellor referred to, and none of them actually is trying to create their own algorithms. That's a sad part.
Thank you, sir. Any other question? Yes, sir. Like there is another question in the chat. You talked about giving boost to oral tradition. Could you please explain how we could do that, sir?
Right,
oral traditions.
In ancient India, see, there was no focus on writing, there was focus on speech. Therefore, all our sciences are developed in a speech format. We had oral texts. Remember the Vedas, all the scientific, Ayurveda, grammar, everything was transmitted orally. There was no writing at all. Now, now the multimodality that is part of the AI technologies could be used to simulate that kind of learning. That the machine speaks to you, you speak to the machine, and you get learning done, right? So entire need is basically to communicate orally. And that will also help those people who don't know how to read and write. So that way will be, it will be basically going back to our the ancient method of educating masses without having the need to write and read.
Thank you, sir. Any other query from the audience, please? You may type in chat box, or maybe you can switch on your mic and ask Dr. Jha, please.
So I have one more, sir. So you talked about handwriting recognition, but many languages in India, just like I'm giving one example, Santhali, the script in which we write through hands is totally different from the font we use in by typing. So how you will relate with it?
But Santhali has Old Chiki script and also Devanagari, right? Old Chiki.
But all Chiki has two types variations, sir. One which is written through the hand and one which is typed. And there is a lot of variation between them. So how the hand recognition will?
Basically, the handwriting recognition system tries to capture how people write. So for example, when we did this experiment of how people write in Devanagari in Rajasthan, in Lucknow and in Delhi, we got actual samples of people writing. So when people write in hand, and they have to be mapped to appropriate fonts. So the existing Santhali Unicode fonts have to be modified. See, Unicode has given you the code page where every character has a point. How you represent that point, that it could be artistic. It could be, you can create a font, a Unicode font, which captures handwriting better, still obeying the Unicode standard. That's not difficult to do. The problem with Santhali script is still, people are still learning, and then most people, I was trying to create a keyboard for Santhali, a predictive keyboard, and there was no data I could get for Santhali Old Chiki. So I thought if I start learning Old Chiki, then it would be a lot of time. So I then actually got the Santhali keyboard for Devanagari script. But yes, the question is that whatever people write, the font has to match that. People will not change their writing.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think
so there is one concern. There was one concern from my side that I would like you to address to the ministry, that a lot of people are working on a lot of Indian languages, and a lot of advancement has also been done for the collection of resources, and research is also going on. But there should be one platform where the resources for all the Indian languages should be available, so that the research should be advanced, rather than people should start from zero every time to develop the resources. So most of the time people are putting their efforts for the development of the resources, which are not shared by the researchers. And again, all are starting from zero to work on. So that is my concern, that if we can start some initiative to make all the resources at one platform, whosoever wants to share.
Lot of effort has gone in. If you remember, towards the end of our ILCA project, we set up a lot of meetings in JNU, at MIT, where Google, Reliance, all the big companies participated. They wanted corpora, and ministry wanted to give them corpora, basically, on payment basis. So we created a document where price for each set was fixed, and the CDAC was supposed to host the data and be a single point where everybody would get data. But again, the problem is this corpora was created by multiple universities, and CDAC wanted JNU to sign an agreement. So all those complications, university did not give permission, all that. So there are a lot of issues actually when we get things done from government funding in India, and then want to create a single portal where everything will be there on payment basis. We can put everything on a free, as it is basis, but to have monetizing aspects of it will be difficult. I remember there was a discussion in the Niti Aayog where I was there, and I had advised them creating something like a Section 8 company on the models of LDC and LRA, where, you know, it could be both, you know, free as well as monetization, all of that. But things, you know, take time in getting done in India. But I hope, you know, this committee, the executive committee of Bhashani, where I'm also a member, and this PSA will certainly be moving towards that in near future. I'm very sure about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Vishal sir, can we go ahead with the vote of thanks, or is there any query, please?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Arvind, keynote speaker for the day, Dr. Garishnath Jhaji, respected deans, heads, principals in charges of various departments, Dr. Vishal Goyal, Director CELTE, Dr. Gurpreet Singh Joshi, Coordinator CELTE, our most valued invited teachers, students, participants, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of Center for E-Learning and Teaching Excellence, Punjabi University Patiala, and the entire fraternity of educators here together, and on my behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the Speaker of the Day, Garishnath Jhaji, for gracing his important viewpoint on sharing with us along with his valuable experiences. Sir, like your experiences and your viewpoint on a multilingual, multicultural society with more than 19,000 languages, 270 mother tongues, and in ancient India, like education was only to solve for problems of the local people. I think it has been time. It's a time to develop it, like it's a great challenge for developing an AI system for a multicultural society. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation and gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, for gracing the occasion with his presidential remarks. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record my hearty thanks to Dr. Vishal Goyal, Director CELTE, and Dr. Gurpreet Singh Joshi, Coordinator CELTE, for conceptualizing and successful conduct of this event. We thank you for being with us this morning. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Vishal, sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Garishnath Jhaji, for sparing the time and enlightening us with the great knowledge.
Thank you, Vishal.
And thank you to my CELTE team and all the participants who have joined on the Zoom and the YouTube. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay, we'll now close the session.
So can we close the meeting now, sir?
Yeah, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So all are requested to